Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. And this weekend, we've had some great entertainment coming to us. We got the Michael Jordan documentary. We had the Teddy Riley and Babyface show off. Oh, no, that sucked. That was real bad. That was terrible. And lastly, we had the new series from Kenya Barris, the creator of Blackish, Mixedish, Grownish, called Black AF. And I'm going to give you my thoughts about it right after the jump. Real quick, if you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be one of the first to know. Now, let's dive into Black AF. Before I get into exactly how I felt about the show, let me talk about something else that has been sort of brought up while this show has been being released, and that's the concept or conceit of colorism and questioning whether a show called Black AF, which for those who don't know, Black AF means black as fuck, who don't know, who feel like that there should be, if you're doing something called Black AF, there should be a complete representation of all things black. That sounds ridiculous. I don't think any one show has a responsibility to be all things black. This is Kenya Barris's his vision, his thought, what he relates to in his life as black, as a black male, as being married to a woman who is black. Even if she's mixed raced, we all know that means she's black. So this whole thought of fair-skinned people not being able to tell the story of their version of a black family sounds a bit ridiculous. It's also a very sad and unfortunate thing that has been passed down from generations when they used to split up slaves from the in-house and the out-house Negroes, the dark-skinned and the fair-skinned. It is something that's been passed on that we unfortunately are infighting amongst ourselves, and that shouldn't be the case. Kenya is not responsible for making a show that encompasses all things black. He's responsible for making a show that encompasses what he knows and what he feels is his vision or version of being black. And back in the day when Martin existed, or Living Single existed, or Fresh Prince of Bel-Air existed, or Different World, or Cosby existed, those shows all did something else for the black experience and the black vision. We are not a monolith. We're very many different things. And so to say that this show is supposed to be representative of all things is a bit foolish. Also, if this is not something that you enjoy, you don't actually have to watch it. There are other options. You don't have to love everything that is black. You don't have to watch everything that is black. You can find what works for you. Insecure may be your thing. This may not. But I don't think you should be writing think pieces about them, especially in public, because there's an old saying that unfortunately black people tend to denigrate each other. And we shouldn't be doing, like, this is a conversation that we should be having amongst ourselves. This is a conversation that we should be writing think pieces where people who are not of our color should be able to see our inner workings. This should all be in the house. Also, as a side note, I feel like this works one way, unfortunately. This beautiful woman here, Tika Sumter, who is killing it on Mixedish right now, is playing the younger version of this woman here, Anna Devere Smith, who played that same character on Blackish. Yeah. So does colorism go both ways, or is it only on a one-way street? So in short, on the colorism thing, the only thing I'll say is if the only people that these actors aren't black as fuck to are black people. And that's a shame. So let's talk about the show. This was a difficult watch for me. There are 8 episodes, ranging in 30 to 40 minutes long. The first 3 episodes, I'm not going to lie, are very difficult to get through. As a person who was a fan of Kenya Barris's shows, and it specifically really loves Blackish, the biggest problem that I can have right now is that it's just not, the first 3 episodes aren't funny to me. And a lot of that is because I have watched an entire series of what the skeletal point of this film or the show is trying to do. This show is basically a heightened version of his life, which is sort of what Blackish is. Blackish, the comedy with Anthony Anderson and on ABC, and a hybrid of what Modern Family does with the single camera, but we're also doing documentary style. And it doesn't work because I think both of those shows do it a lot better. But I think when you've watched Blackish and you've seen these story threads played out before, it's kind of hard to try to get back into the mode to rewatch them again in what is essentially a lesser version. And not because of the writing. The writing is still fantastic, and I think Rashida Jones is knocking, from start to finish, is knocking it out of the park. I think when you recycle themes that we've seen, the Juneteenth stuff that we've seen on Blackish, and we've seen, families saying I'm too rich and or my kids don't respect me, or the kids like this, it gets a little played out. But the other thing is, even if I were to sit through this again, and I think the writing again is fantastic, there are some delivery issues that happen that just disconnect me from the first 3 episodes of the show. You really get to love and respect everything that Anthony Anderson is doing with that type of a character, because there are levels to it. When you get sad, you get happy. There is emotion that happens. Kenya, bless his heart, is a fantastic writer, and I get the conceit of everything that he's trying to display. But unfortunately, there are some times where his levels don't change, and so everything that he's doing is very one note, and the delivery that he gives doesn't give me the things needed to make everything else tie together. And that sucks, because I think there's some good things happening. I just don't think his delivery or what he's doing quite works to get the point across. I'm not a big fan of the kids in this first 3 episodes. 2 of them, the older daughters grow on me on the back half of the show, which I'll talk about in a second, but the kids don't do anything for me. A lot of that is because unfortunately I've seen kid actors on both Blackish, Mixedish, and Modern Family that have done that kid thing a little bit better, and I feel like there's too many characters. And granted, this is based on his life, so you can't really fault him for putting all of those kids in there because they actually exist. They just aren't all that interesting, and the bottom 3 kids become one-note caricatures as opposed to having any type of realistic character, anything realistic to say, or any type of real humanity to them, which sucks. It is not all bad, though. I think the show picks up in the latter half of the season. I think episode 5, when they get into the film industry and talking about Rotten Tomatoes and scores and seeing a film, I wish this show or this season started with that episode. Now, you can't do that because you got to kind of like lay the groundwork for those characters. But that 40-minute episode, I was not bored. I was laughing hysterically. And it was telling me something that I don't think Blackish has ever told me, which I think is when this show was at its peak. I also think the show is at its peak when, while Rashida is carrying her in, I think the show works better when there are more people on the board, or more characters on the board besides just Kenya and Rashida Jones. Specifically when Kenya starts going to work and he's working with his boardroom of writers. I think that's when it starts getting funnier, because those characters can kind of hide the fact that Kenya may not be the strongest in this, and it just becomes a bit more of an ensemble. The entire episode that I was speaking of, about episode 5, where the film stuff comes in and we get more of Kenya's family coming around the family barbecue. Hilarious, because you've got a bunch of different layers and people that are kind of hiding the flaws or faults that Kenya has as an actor, but displaying 1000% the stuff that he has as a writer. And that's when I think the show is at its height. The back end is pretty solid. I think from 5 to 8, we have a good show. It becomes sort of a through line about a deteriorating marriage and the ups and downs of that. The only problem, again, it becomes a lot of a rinse and repeat of what Blackish has done better. If anyone has watched Blackish, I believe it was last season, or might be the season before, they had an entire divorce storyline occurring, and that hit me so much harder than anything that I had in this. Now, some of that is because I had multiple seasons to kind of get to that point and love those characters, but I just think emotionally there was more connection to that than to this. Also, it's again a rinse and repeat. Back end of the season also established a little bit more of a storyline between the 2 older sisters and how they lived and grew up in a household that was very different than what their younger kids have grown up in, and that they have a relationship that has been kind of tested and tried. One's a little bit wilder, one's a little bit more of a straight-laced, kind of dealing with that same like interaction between the 2 of them, and it works. But again, it sucks because by the time that episode 8 ends, it's one of those things where like, oh, you guys were just kind of getting into your groove. I wish we kind of could have gone a little bit more. But unfortunately, that was the last one. What my overall thoughts for Black AF is this. I think there is a good show somewhere in there. It sucks. Most people are going to stop watching this show after episode 2 or 3 because it's hard. I think if you have never seen Blackish or Mixedish or Grownish or Modern Family, you probably will enjoy this. There's some funny moments in there. It's just a lot of been there, done that for me. And no fault to Kenya. Like Kenya was creating content of what he knows. It's just unfortunately, as a person who's a big fan of that, I can take it one way. I don't need that same thing recycled over, warmed over, put in another dish, sprinkle in a little curse words because we're now on Netflix, and then call it a new show for me. And it sucks. I think there's some great things that are happening. Season 5 is great. It's a little bit more stylized with the documentary stuff. I love the play of playing in when you're doing a cutscene of a documentary, they're showing the behind the scenes of that. That all works. I just think the conceit of the actual show is where it kind of just becomes, oh, this is just Blackish with a Modern Family twist to it. I think it would have been a little bit better I know he's playing a heightened version of himself. I wish we had gone even crazier with it, because I think when you don't go too crazy on that side and you play it a little bit safe, you kind of end up in this world where you're almost doing the exact same thing. That sucks, because I was looking forward to this. I think there's some funny things. And I think if you want to watch Rashida Jones just be on 10 from start to finish, I think this is something you should watch. But my personal opinion is, if they were to bring this back or not bring this back, I wouldn't be hurt either way. Would I watch it if it came back? Sure, if I had nothing else to watch. But I don't think this is something, unfortunately, that you need to rush out and watch. I do think Kenya has some better content that is on TV between the ish shows. And I think you get a better idea of, I think his writing is great. I think you see on those shows his writing put into the hands of capable performers that can to heighten his work to the levels that I think it truly is. But those are my thoughts. Have you watched Black AF? What did you guys think? Go ahead and leave your comments in the comments below. I'm curious to hear what everybody thinks about this. I know there's been some mixed reaction. Again, like I said at the very top of this, as a black person, you don't have to love everything that is black. Some people love Queen and Slim. I did. Some people didn't. You can't. There is no box that says everything that comes down the pipe arch-wise black. You have to like, which is why I think you should watch. If nothing else, you should watch episode 5, because I think you'll get out of watching that show, you'll get a kick out of people reacting to this show and anything else, other form of black content. But curious to hear what you guys thought. Leave your comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI, or you can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast by the same name that is on Google Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere that plays podcasts. We are there. Last episode, we were talking about the Daniel Craig Bond series and his first foray in that, because No Time to Die did not come out. But I believe this week we'll be talking about the new animated Mortal Kombat Scorpion's Revenge. Because, there's nothing else in theaters, and Mortal Kombat is a repeat or a spinoff or adaptation. So that is what we'll be talking about there. But I hope everyone is staying safe, washing their hands, checking on loved ones, social distancing, but making sure that even if you're binging all of this and read a book, do something different outside of your norm just to keep your brain going, all right? Stay safe. Thanks, guys.